So welcome everybody for our nothing as exciting as a Torah class, Torah spot. And we are studying the laws of Lashon Hara, of slander, of talking not nice about other people. And we said last week that even if it means not taking a job, because you know the people that work there enjoy talking about gossip about people at the lunchtime. That's when they get together and talk gossip, or they run over to each other and went to the coffee break and talk gossip. We say, don't take a job over there because you're going to get probably trapped into their talking and their idle gossip, and we say keep away from it. Certainly, if we're saying even for living purposes, making money for a living, you shouldn't get involved in such a place like that. Certainly, if your own honor or reputation is on the line, people in a group talking gossip, and you happen to be in that group, and if you don't participate in their talk, they're going to say, hey, come on, you're not with it, chill out, come on, open up. So a little gossip won't hurt anybody. For sure, you shouldn't be influenced by their talking or by their making you feel bad and feel inferior to them. On the contrary, you should feel superior to them. That you're keeping God's Torah, keeping God's law, and you don't want to talk about a fellow Jew or gossip about anybody else. So let them go with their gossip. Well, you shouldn't let them. You should rebuke them and tell them they shouldn't talk. Telling me to talk, I'm telling you not to talk. You should talk back to them and tell them that you were doing the wrong thing and not feel inferior because you're not doing what they're doing. You should be superior. It's an interesting words of our rabbis. A person should rather be considered a fool his whole life and not be a bad person in the eyes of God. People might consider him a fool. So naive, such a nebuchal, doesn't want to talk gossip. So let them say whatever they want, but still we shouldn't be considered evil in God's eyes. We don't care what is considered in their eyes. People are doing the wrong thing. And the person at that moment, we spoke it a few weeks ago, should feel and realize how much reward he's going to get for keeping back and not getting involved with their idle gossip and doing God's law, how much reward a man's going to get, a person's going to get for controlling himself at that time and not giving in to the temptation of getting involved with a group of gossipers. Brings another words of the great rabbis. Every second the person keeps his mouth shut, he will merit the light of the world to come, that no angel can even measure the greatness of that light. The world to come, even the angels don't know what it's all about. For every second the person will control himself and not speak Lashon Hara. Every second, korega v'rega, the person should feel good that even though it's difficult now, they're making fun of me and they think I'm naive and I show them a fool, but God thinks I'm good. That's what counts, and every second he will be merited to get such a great reward in the world to come. Now, this law of refraining from speaking gossip and Lashon Hara, not necessarily speaking. Writing would be the same thing. If you write to somebody, write down a piece of paper, so I'm not allowed to speak, but when I can write it, no, naturally you can't write it. Also, not only speaking openly and writing it openly, explicitly, but even hinting to it. What do you think about him? You have to say a word. What do you think about him? You just make a motion, and the person already knows what you think about it. You don't have to say any words about it. Just facial expressions or movements with our hands or whatever it might be, and that says the whole story, the whole sad story. That is considered real Lashon Hara, even though a person did not utter one word out of his mouth. And he goes on to say, even if you criticize yourself together with the other person. Say, what's the way? Say, I criticize myself also. I'm not just talking about him and building myself up. We both did the same thing. We both said there's something wrong. You want to talk about yourself? Okay. But don't talk about him. You have no right to talk about him. Of course, we have the famous story with the Chafetz Chaim. Rabbi Chaim Mintz, the one who wrote this wonderful sefer, this book. They say a story about him, that he was traveling on the train one time, and he used to go all the time incognito. He was a very, very humble person, never told anybody who he really was. He used to go very secretly to different places, a very simple Jew, dressed very simply also, and was sat next to another Jewish person on the train, and they started talking, and he asked the Chafetz Chaim, where do you come from? He said, I come from Radin. That was the same famous city. Radin was a small town. From Radin. That's this place for the Chafetz Chaim. Yeah, Chafetz Chaim, yeah. You know how great the Chafetz Chaim is? You ever go to see him? He's not so great. People think he's so great. He's not so great. What are you talking about? The Chafetz Chaim? What are you saying? I said, I know him very good. I live down this road. He's not what people think he is. The guy gave him a slap in the face and walked away. So he said, see, you can't talk Chafetz Chaim about yourself either. See, I got so angry. He gave him a slap and walked away. So you can't talk even about myself. I can't speak Lashon Hara. It came out at the end. That's such a story like that. Okay, that's for the laws of tonight's Shir, Shmuz. And now we get back to the topic we started, and we came to the place in the Torah where the matriarchs are having children, the wives of Yaakov Avinu, Rachel, and Leah, Bilhah, and Zilpah. And Leah, just to catch us up very quickly, Leah has 4 children so far, Reuven, Shimon, and Levi, and Yehuda. And Rachel is very upset. She can't have any children. So she decides to go on the path of Sarah, the grandmother of Yaakov Avinu, who gave her maidservant to Avram, and she had children through her. And we said she tried 2 things. Either she will have children because of herself, she might have children, because in the mitzvah of sacrificing and bringing another wife into the family to build up the Jewish nation, since she'll go along with that, she herself might have children. That was one of her ideas of bringing Bilhah in, her maidservant. And another was, which we're talking about now, that even though Bilhah will have children, they'll be considered like her children. Since that's her maidservant, so the children that Bilhah will have, she will be considered like the mother of those children. So we're trying to understand how that works. So we started to talk about servitude. Today, in our society, servitude and slavery is a bad word. It's very unacceptable. Something that the whole Civil War was about. the North and the South. If you know the history of America, Abe Lincoln was the one who fought for civil rights, led the Civil War against the South, who had many landowners who had slaves, and he naturally was victorious, and slavery was abolished in this country, and he's considered a great leader of justice and civil rights, the father of civil rights in America, Abraham Lincoln. The question, what do we do with the Torah? The Torah talks about servitude and slavery and doesn't seem to look down upon it. So we want to bring out a point how that works. Is it bad or isn't it bad? The Torah condones it, couldn't be too bad. So what I want to talk about tonight, our main topic tonight. Is slavery bad? Servitude bad? There are two kinds of servants in Torah law. One on our glossary sheet, Evet Ivri, a Jewish servant. How does a Jewish person become a Jewish servant? Jewish servant means that he's bought by an owner, pays the servant the money that's coming to him, and that servant serves for at least 6 years the owner who bought him. Sheish Shanim Yavai, the Torah says. 6 years he has to serve. The 7th year, he goes out free. Now why and how does a Jewish man become a servant? So we're told, studying the Talmud, the Gemara, and studying Maimonides, who has the laws of the Torah. And number 2, Machruhu Beistin, the court sells him. Why will the court sell somebody? Number 3, Gonav ve'enloi. He stole, he's a robber. He stole from somebody, and he was caught, and he does not have money to pay what he stole from the person. So what do? We say to him, you can't pay back, you have a responsibility. We sell him as a servant to somebody who pays whatever he's worth, and that money goes to the person who was robbed, goes to that person. That's one way how a Jewish person becomes a servant, by court order to pay back what he owes to the other person. Only owes not as a loan, don't sell a person any other reason, only because of stealing. The second reason how a Jewish person becomes a servant is number 4, Moicher Atzmai. If he sells himself. Why does a person sell himself? Number 5, Klum Lafilaksus. He is so poor, he has nothing, even clothing he doesn't have. No food, no house, no clothing. He's a real, what do you call him? Vagabond. What do you call him? Real nothing. How that happened, who knows how that happened. But he has nothing for himself, for his family. So we say under such circumstances, we allow a person to sell himself in order to be able to live like a decent life. Of course, a woman, we have a number 6, cannot sell herself or be sold. It's not dignified for a woman to be sold and to sell herself. We won't allow that. But a man can sell and be sold under these circumstances, not other circumstances. Now, before we explain the Torah's view on this. We want to go through to see what is the life of a Jewish servant. We think about a servitude as, oy, Nebuch, the poor guy. He's the servant in somebody else's house. So let's examine what the Torah says, the life of a Jewish servant. First of all, number 7, he cannot be sold to a non-Jew. That's for sure not. He has to be sold to a Jew because he has to perform all the laws of the Torah, even though he's sold as a servant, does not free him from performing all the laws of the Torah. He has to keep Shabbos and Yom Tov, put on tefillin and tzitzis, everything. It doesn't exempt him from the laws of the Torah. So naturally, if he'll be in the house of a non-Jew, it won't be very easy for him to live such a Jewish life. So he can only be sold, whether he's selling himself or the court is selling him, it must be to a Jewish person. Now, number 8, Avodas Perech. I want to quote to you the words of the Rambam in the laws of servitude. You know, we quote very often to the Rambam, the holy book of the Rambam, genius, the master of Torah. And naturally what the Rambam says is based on the Talmud and the Gemara and the oral law. It's nothing the Rambam says by himself. Everything the Rambam says has a basis and a root in the oral law. Was given to Moshe Rabbeinu on Mount Sinai, the oral law. But he put it together, codified it into a very wonderful work of the Rambam, Yad HaChazak, it's called Mishnah Torah. So he says the following, free translation. Kol Eved Ivri, Aser Lav By Beferech, which we have on the glossary sheet. Beferech means fruitless labor. That's how I translate it. Listen to the Rambam's words. Avodah she'ein lo kitzvah. If there's no limit to the work that he's given to do. Oy avodah she'ein lo tzarich lo. Or to serve, do something which is not necessary, which has no purpose to it. Those are two things that a master of a Jewish servant cannot demand his servant to do. For instance, he says to him, you can't say, dig this field, dig this under the tree, dig a ditch in my backyard for storage, whatever it is, and keep digging until I get back. Just keep digging. You can't tell him that. Because it's very difficult if there's no kitzvah, there's no limit. Just keep digging. I'll come back in an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. It's very painful for a person to feel he doesn't know the limit to how long he has to dig, how long he has to do this work. You can't tell him that. You can tell him, dig until 12 o'clock. Dig until 12:30. I'll be back at this time. For a person to have to work without any time limit is not comfortable. He has to feel that I know there's a limit to it. I know I can stop and rest at a certain time. Or you can't tell him dig in this place and make a hole in the ground, and he doesn't need it. He doesn't need the hole. Why does he want him to do it? To keep him busy. I bought this slave, and I paid money for him, the servant, and he'll sit idle, not do anything. I can't take that. So just work, dig it. I don't need the hole. I don't need it. Later on, he'll see he just made him work for nothing. Can't do that to an Eved. He has to see the fruits of his labor. He has to see something that comes, a positive thing that comes from his input into something. He works hard for something. Whatever he does, even doesn't work hard. Even if it doesn't warm me up this pot of water. And he doesn't need any hot water. Just warm it up. He wants to see him work. Not allowed to do that. Make him work for nothing, or even for something, but it's limitless. You can't do that. That's called, and it's a word, words of the Torah. L'savat boy avodas perich. Perich means work that is either limitless or fruitless, of no purpose to it. This is a Jewish man. You can't just make him do whatever you feel like. If it's something that's going to bother him, upset him, you can't make him work such a type of thing. It's number one. Then we have number 9. That's called avodas eved. The Torah don't work about the work serving of a slave. What is that talking about? Things that are humiliating. Type of work which is humiliating. Taking off the shoes, putting on the shoes. You sit back in the chair and say, hey, Yankel, take off my shoes. Oh, you're my servant. You have to do what I... You can't do that. It's not for coveting. It's not honorable type of work for a person. You can't put him down like that. Jewish man, he was like you were till now. For whatever reason he was sold, but you can't treat him like a who knows what. You have to treat him honorably. So we have these 2 prohibitions. The Torah is telling us how to treat a Jewish servant. You can't treat him in a non-honorable fashion. Then, the Rambam says, in number 10, listen to this. Kol Eved Ivri, he master must make him equal to him in what he eats, what he drinks. He can't sit by the table and say, okay, I got steak tonight, but your cooked chicken's good enough for you. You're my servant. I bought you my money, so I eat steak, you eat cooked chicken. I get French fries, you get mashed potatoes. Whatever the master's eating, you got to give to your servant. They like mashed potatoes better, I don't know. If you're eating steak, he eats the same steak. If he eats French fries, if you have good wine, then you have to give him the good wine also. You can't make him any less than you, than the master. Same thing goes for clothing. Same thing goes for the room that he sleeps in. I'll sleep in the master bedroom, beautiful room, better bed. You can sleep in the shed over there. You're a servant. Oh no. The same kind of house, the same kind of room, same kind of bed. Nothing can be less than the master. Can't give him a bad mattress to sleep on. As good as the master, he has to give him to the extent. That's what we have number 10, by the way. The words of the Rambam, you must make him equal to food, to drink, to clothing, and to shelter, the place that you live. Anything you have, you must give to him. The Rambam goes on to say, Milik achva. You have to treat him like brotherly love. You have to treat him like your good friend, like your brother. You can't say you're a servant. To make yourself aloof and high above him and look down upon him. Milik achva. You have to treat him like a regular person who's sitting in shul next to him, who sit wherever it might be, and fellow co-worker, whatever it is, you have to treat him with respect and with closeness. like a person that you're very close to. It's how you have to treat it as an Eved. To the extent, number 12, kekayna adam la'atzmai. If a person buys a Jewish servant, it's like he bought a master. If there's only one bed, there's only one steak, there's only one bottle of good wine, who's supposed to drink it? Who's supposed to eat it? Who's supposed to sleep there? You have to give it to the Eved. The Torah tells us. Imach. That the Eved comes before the master. If you have two steaks, you take one, he takes one. If you only have one steak, you have to give it to him. You can't sit there eating steak and giving, he's an Eved. He can take something inferior. He's not inferior. He's a regular Jewish person who sold for a purpose. He might have stole before, certainly repented, doesn't upset what he did. He's paying back what he stole, and you have to treat him with the greatest respect, to the extent the Chazal say you bought a servant, you bought a master. He's your master. Because if there's only enough for one, he gets it. He's above the master. He becomes the master. To that extent. Not only that, number 14, the master is obligated not only to give all these things to the Eved himself, but he has to feed his wife and his sons and his daughters. You buy an Eved servant, you have to take care of that family. It's a family coming in. It's a package deal. That's why I bought him. No problem. His wife is children's family. Not my concern. Oh, no. If you buy a Jewish servant, you are obligated to take care of his whole family. Until 6 years come by, they'll leave. But till then, you're obligated to take care of them. So, let's look at what's happening over here. This terrible, terrible idea of servitude. Here's a man who's down and out, has no money, no clothing. Terrible state of affairs. So today, what would a person do? We have a very wonderful country we live in today. We must admit, we have a wonderful, probably never in any country in the world until recently, things were not so great. Today, people have ways and means of living for food. They have food stamps, and they have Section 8 for living, and there are all kinds of government programs. We have a Malchus Shel Chesed, the government of great kindness, that's true. But it's certainly not the same level of the way a person's living. If it comes an Eved Ivri, he's taken care of. The other who buys him has to take care of all of his needs, his food. And he has to treat him like a mensch, like himself, his family. All of a sudden, he has a different life. And he's active. He's doing something. He feels he's worth something. The person who lives on government programs and welfare sits and what does he do? Nothing. He feels he's useless. This man has a job. He's working. He's able to look up to society and say, I'm just not free-loafing off society. I'm active. I'm making an honest living. Sold myself to this person. I got the money for it. I'm serving him. I'm active. I'm helping out. I'm keeping this person's household going. I'm helping like a worker. Well, certainly not so bad. Pretty good. It's a wonderful thing. The Torah is looking at this person. Achmanas on him. Let's do something for him. We did great for him. How about the robber? The one that stole. He sold because he has to pay back what he stole. Put him in jail, like they put him in jail today. So what does he do in jail? Nothing. Doesn't pay back anything. doesn't involved in society. He sits there doing nothing. Well, of course, some people love to go back into jail. Some people are trying to get back. They have a good life in jail. At least they get 3 hot meals a day, right? But look at the difference between the two people. The person who's still selling will be active, will work off the obligation that he has. He'll be a mensch. Finished his servitude, he's going to come back to society. The problem is that today it's not going to work, because not what people want to have in their house, a robber. You say, sell, but you say, who wants to buy this guy? He stole and he has to pay back. Who wants to buy him? I find too many people that they want to have a robber in their house. The other guy who's poor, so people come into their house. In the time of the Torah and the Gemara, even the robbers were nice people. The people you take into your house. They weren't like today, like these, we have today the criminals. They're a different type of people. They say a story about, in Lakewood, one little city of Lakewood, about a robber came into a house. The parents left the house for a while, and the children were home. And they left the door open. So this guy comes in. He starts taking some things in the house, some silver. And he says to the kids, tell your parents, they're not responsible. They left the door open. Somebody dangerous might come in here. Tells them. He came in, I'm a nice guy. I'm saying, but what kind of parents are you? Somebody, you can't leave the door open like that. So he's a nice robber, he's a nice guy. He just came in, he didn't have a gun or anything, just found the door open, came. There's nice robbers and difficult robbers, a different type of people. The time of the Gemara, time of the Torah, it was a different society. People might steal and rob because they down and out, they need something because it's not an excuse, but it's a reason. But they don't have to be such terrible people. But certainly that would be a much better way to deal with criminals who steal. To sell them, get the money, pay back, and they're active people. They're doing something constructive. They're not just locked up in jail and doing nothing and just getting in trouble with the other people that are worse than they are and learning from their ways and so on. The problems of jail. A person would be in a decent home and be there for a few years. Rehabilitate the person to such a great extent. So the idea of servitude is not a bad thing. Not a bad thing at all. You come to think of it. This robber is in a good place. All the things that was applied to the other guy applies to him too. You have to treat him with respect. Take care of him. And you give him the steak too and everything. You have to treat him nicely. You won't get that in jail. And it's something that the Torah says that we condone, and we feel that it's a good thing. A lot of people today who work in certain sections of the city and see what people are doing, what's happening to them. They'd be much, much better off they'd be servants in people's homes. They'd live a productive life instead of roaming the streets and getting into trouble and bothering people. They just go sink further and further into their problems, and they certainly would be much better off. They would be servants. Now, of course, we have the idea of a servant who wants to stay on longer. He's 6 years serving, and it's a good life. He enjoys it. It's great. He has everything he needs. He's taken care of. So he thought, okay, 6 years, goodbye, time to leave. He said, I don't want to leave. I want to stay. It's great. I like the master, the whole side. It's a nice family to live with. So that's when we go and bore a hole in his ear. Remember, the Torah says, and we allow him to stay till Yovel, till the Jubilee year. That's every 50 years they come around. He can't stay longer than that. But we give a pierce his ear, not to put an earring in his ear, but pierce his ear, because you see the pictures of slaves with, I think, what's the name of that stuff, Mr. Clean, you see the guy with the earring in his ear, but they didn't put earring in the ear. They've come to that problem. You pierce his ear, as a slave. He said slave on the front of the bottle. So why do we do that? Because, like rabbis tell us, the ear that heard Mount Sinai, Kili b'nei Yisrael avodim. The Jewish people are my servants. L'avodim avodim. They're not servants to servants. You want to be a servant further? It's bad enough you're a servant till now. Okay, you had to be a servant. You stole. You're poor. But now, get out. Get on your own. You're my servant. You're not a servant to a master, a blood and flesh master. You're a servant to God. You want to stay a servant to him. Further on, so give to make him think what you're doing. It's not the right thing to do. But if you really want to do it, we're allowed to do it, but something that it's not glad kosher. It's kosher, but not glad kosher, so to speak. That is as far as an Eved Ivri is concerned, a Jewish servant. Then we come to the second type of servant, Eved Kanani. An Eved, it's not complete, this, we put everything here. Affects in 2 papers, I guess we never got the second paper. Eved Kanani, oh, you have another one. Oh, you have 2. Oh, okay. Number 17, thank you. If anybody has both papers. Eved Kanani, a servant who was originally not Jewish, a non-Jewish person, wants to become an Eved, wants to become a servant to a Jewish person. What's he thinking? Why does he want to become an Eved? The law is that a non-Jewish person wants to become a slave, a servant to a Jewish person, has to go through conversion. A man must have bris milah, circumcision, and must immerse himself in a mikveh, and becomes partially the kedusha, the holiness of a Jew. He's not obligated to do all the laws of the Torah. He's only obligated to do the gods that a woman's obligated to do. Because a woman doesn't have to, a regular Jewish woman does not have to fulfill all the mitzvahs of the Torah. And this Eved becomes like a woman. He's not obligated to all the mitzvahs of the Torah, only some mitzvahs. To make it easier for him. So that means he doesn't want, because it's too much for him, to come to take upon himself the yoke of all the laws of the Torah, 613 mitzvahs. That's too much for him. He's not holding by that. But he wants to still be Jewish. So we give him a chance. We say, okay, you want to be Jewish, you can become partially Jewish, you get some mitzvahs of Torah, but only through servitude. Now this is very interesting how this works. This Eved Kanani that we're talking about does not have the laws that we mentioned before. The master is allowed to make him do work that is not necessary, not tell him how long he has to work. He can make him do all kinds of things. He's not obligated to treat this servant like a Jewish servant. Not obligated. But the Rambam tells us, when he talks about the laws of the non-Jewish, the originally non-Jewish servant, even though he doesn't have to treat him the same way, but this Chasidus, Darchei, HaChochma, a person who's a righteous person, pious person, person with Torah wisdom. Jewish people are Rachmanim, have mercy. They go after justice. They will not, number 19, Rachman ulay al avdai. They will not make the servant work so hard. he'll give him to eat and to drink from everything that he eats and drinks. He'll treat him like a Jewish servant, even though he's not obligated to. But the Jewish people, or Rahmanim, they don't take advantage of people. They don't put people down. They don't humiliate people. He'll treat him like his own servant, like himself. We saw all the Jewish people that had servants. They used to treat their servants very royally, very nicely. They would give them to eat before they ate, even. Make sure that the servant, even the Eved Kanani we're talking about, they would treat them so nicely. They would give them to eat before they ate. Will not embarrass him, not in actions, not in words. Speak to him very nicely. Here, if there's any complaints, to take them seriously. The Rebbe goes on and on to tell us that even though according to the law, they don't have to treat them that way, but they will. So now, what we're seeing over here is this Eved Kanani wants to have a free pass. When it comes to the world to come, he becomes subjugated, subordinated to his master. He will come in the world to come on the coattails of his master, without doing all the laws of the Torah. But since he is subjugated to such an extent that according to the law, the master is totally controlling him, according to the law. He can't even buy something for himself. He can't even own, he said no ownership by himself. He subjugates himself when he sells. He knows what he's getting into. I'm selling myself to you, and I'm your servant, and I'm totally given over to you. Whatever you want, you can do with me. Of course, he can't do anything bad. We can't hurt him or anything like that. He can't. But he can make him work very hard. He can make whatever he wants him to, however he wants him to work. Doesn't have to feed him even. So you have to go and get tzedakah, get charity. What's the purpose of it? Even though people wouldn't do that, even though the law says you could, but you wouldn't. People don't do it. But he is taking himself and putting himself into the situation that I am totally subjugated to this master. In the world that we live in now, and in the world to come, he will become, along with him, to enjoy all the benefits of the world to come, since he subjugated himself to this. And he gets away with not doing all the laws of the Torah, because he doesn't feel that he's ready for that. He doesn't want to take upon such a yoke of the Torah. That's the purpose. The problem with slavery was that people didn't act this way the Rambam was talking about. That slavery, people started taking advantage of slaves, and beating them and hitting them, which you're not allowed to do. You're supposed to treat them very nicely. And therefore, slavery became taboo. Slavery became something that was not accepted by society today because they're not treated the right way. And also because they're not assured of coming to the world, getting assurance of coming to the world to come together with the masters. Only by Jewish people such a thing could be. Really is for the person himself. If he wants, he has the way to become Jewish and get the benefits of being Jewish for eternally, with the condition that you subjugate yourself totally to the master. Then you come together with the master like a Jewish person in the world to come. And this is our whole idea of the maidservants, that they gave themselves over under the jurisdiction, subjugation of Rachel. Therefore we said, either she'll have a child in the schus, her own child, and the merit of bringing someone else into the house to build the Jewish nation, and through that they'll be able to have children. And if they don't, but the fact that their maidservant had a child, and the maidservant is totally subjugated and subordinated to the master, to Rachel, to Leah, therefore it's considered like they had the child, because they are totally under their jurisdiction and their power, and they have nothing of their own they give themselves over to these great people and say, we're yours. Whatever you want to do with us, you can do with us, and we're there for you, and we want it because we want to be together with you in this world with such great people. The world to come, we're together with them. So therefore, we have an understanding of why they said, I'll take this maidservant into the house, and I'll build myself up from her. One of two ways, we said. Either they themselves will have the child in the merit, in the mitzvah that they brought somebody else into the house, another woman, to build a Jewish nation and overlook their own pain of having somebody compete with them as the wife of Yaakov Avinu. And if they don't merit their own children, but their child they'll have through this shivka, through this maidservant, it's considered like their child. Because they consider, they're like all one. The maidservant comes together with the master, like one unit. Since she subordinates herself totally to the master. Therefore, they'll be considered together in this world and the world to come with all the benefits. So this is what we're talking about. We talked about slavery from the Torah. Not so bad. Great thing if it would be used the right way, if it would be done the right way, in the way of the Torah, of the way that Rambam talks about. So it would be, for many people, it would be a very, very nice, they'd love to be able to become servants, either Jewish servant or the non-Jew become a Jewish servant, halfway house into the Torah law. And so when the people, the first attitude is servitude, that's terrible. But now we can understand it's not terrible at all. We have it done the right way, the way the Torah wants us to do. So now we can have you find it out. If anybody who has any questions like this. Okay, a lot of hands up.
You spoke about Lashon Hara. What is the role of a witness who's testifying in a court of law and has to testify negatively against somebody? Isn't that a version of Lashon Hara?
Well, there are many instances of Lashon Hara is permitted when there is a necessity. Then Lashon Hara is not only permitted, but it's obligated. One of those instances that we're talking about testimony, in order to say that somebody did something bad to somebody else, he hurt him, or he damaged him, and he wants to have to pay for his damage, then it's a obligation on the witness who saw what happened to come to court and say what he saw, in order that the justice should be done. So Lashon Hara is not, of course, we'll discuss that we get further on. The Chavetz Chaim discusses many cases where Lashon Hara is permitted and obligated. For instance, if you want to go into a partnership with somebody in business, and you want to know if he's an honest person, you don't want to be in partners with a person who's dishonest, so you're allowed to go asking people questions and find out about the person, the potential partner, if he's honest or not. If he's not honest, the person who's being asked is obligated to answer the truth and tell him he's dishonest. Don't get involved with him. I know he used to be partnered with the other guy, and he took everything away from him, and he was a terrible person. So you're allowed, of course, you're not allowed to believe it right away. You'll have to discuss it. Yeah, but you're allowed to act according to what you hear. Or somebody wants to get married, the shidduch wants to get married to some boy, wants to find out about a girl, the girl wants to find out about a boy. Is he a good guy? Is she a good girl? Should I get married to her? So if you ask people who know them, they're obligated to say the truth. What type of people they are, what type of family it is. When it comes to something that's important, you're allowed to and obligated to say the truth. We're talking plain gossip, which has no purpose. That's what we're talking about.
You mentioned only men can sell themselves into slavery, right?
Right.
So Bilhah and Zilpah, they were women. How did that work?
That was before the Torah was given, and they did things then, but necessarily that was Torah law, and but they on their own. This was not that they had a law of a second thing. First of all, it's not a question because Yaakov married two sisters, right? Rachel and Leah, you're not allowed to marry two sisters. Chasisha, that's totally forbidden according to Torah. But before the Torah was given, he married Rachel and Leah, because all the laws did not apply before the Torah was given. Most of the laws they kept, but certain things they didn't. So this could have been one of those things also. And secondly, they on their own, without having a Torah law obligating them to become servants. Once, in other words, a person who sells himself for 6 years, he can't back out. He has to stay for the 6 years. But if a person will obligate himself for a day or 2 days, as long as you obligate yourself, you can do that if you want. You can back out anytime you want to. These maid servants, very possibly, that they, on their own, because they saw the greatness of Rachel and Leah, so they put themselves under the yoke of their servitude because they wanted to be part of it, become one with them. So it wasn't an obligation to stay that way. They can back out anytime they wanted to. So to answer your question, one of these two things would be the reason why, one of the two possibilities.
I have one more question.
Yes.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. The person who is has nothing and he sells himself. The master gives him money, and like how much money and how is.
No, he supports him. He doesn't give him money. It's food, clothing.
Oh, for his work.
And shelter. Yes.
And what about with the robber?
Initially he has to pay money for him. But
Oh,
that
yeah,
money
he does have to pay money for him.
Oh, sure, he buys him. That's the whole purpose of selling him, to take the money and pay off what he stole, to pay off his debt.
You mean for the one who,
The one who stole. The
one who stole? Does it depend how much he stole, or? I mean, it's 6 years. He can't pay off $200, so all he pays is $200.
As much as he can pay for that amount of time that he's that he works. If it's beyond that, so then you can't. We'll just have to later on owe it to him and pay him pay off slowly when it'll go out after 6 years. They'll have to get a job and slowly pay off the person. But
no. I mean, if it's a very little amount that he can't pay, so let's say he robbed $200. He doesn't have the $200. The master who buys him gives the court the $200 to repay the person that was robbed.
Right.
And for that $200, he's enslaved for 6 years.
Well,
Even
no.
if it's only $200.
No, he'll pay the full amount of 6 years, but he'll pay $200 to pay off his debt and to put the rest of the money in the bank. Because he can keep, but if he's worth more than he stole, so then you don't have to pay for him. The master has to pay the full amount.
Oh, so the slave gets money that he can put in the bank.
Yes.
In both cases.
He can't sell himself for that, though. The Rambam says. He can't. A man is not allowed to sell himself because he want to make money for himself. He can't do that. A guy, I want to make money. Who cares? I'll work for this. You can't do that. Only if he's down and out. Other than that, you're not allowed to sell yourself. But the Rambam explicitly says that.
Because this slave is benefiting for 6 years of being taken care of.
But once
on top of that, he also gets money for selling himself?
Whatever the difference between what he owes and what he got from being sold, he keeps that money. The difference. But initially, he's being sold because he owes the money. But if you don't owe the money, so he can't sell himself. To make money, you can't sell yourself. Because we're servants to God, not servants to people. Only for the purpose of raising money to pay back what he stole. Is that clear?
The one who's just poor.
Yes.
Does he get money?
Yes.
Is that like a set amount?
Whatever. Well, there's the slave market, the servant market. There's people, depends how healthy he is, how old he is. Depends how people pay for a person like that.
Yeah, well, some of that was what I was going to ask. If he sells himself, then actually he's selling himself and he's getting paid money. So in actuality, he's working and getting paid in a couple of different forms. He may be getting paid food, shelter, and so forth in that respect, and he's also maybe getting money paid to him as well. So it's sort of as though he's working.
The initial sale, he got money for initial sale. He got money for initial sale.
I understand that, but
then the master has to support him afterwards.
Right, but the master's supporting him.
When he'll go out after 6 years, he'll have some money left. Money he sold himself, has some money to get started.
In one respect, it sounds like he's like his butler or something, where if somebody was to go out there and hire a butler, say, okay, here's the rooms you stay, here's we feed you, we take care of you, we clothe you, and we'll go out there and we pay you as well. and ironically, it sounds crazy, but the butler, the person who stole is better off than somebody who hires a butler, because the butler will go out there and they'll give him food or whatever, but the person who stole, they got to give him the same exact food that the person who is eating, so he's got it sort of better in that respect.
That's
And then
right.
I was going to say, what happens if you have that one steak and you have that one thing? There's no thing like they cut the steak in half and each takes half or any of that kind of thing, or that doesn't really apply?
The both won't be satisfied. No. He has to satisfy him. No, he has to
So,
do enough to satisfy.
so is he
Half the
really like
steak is not good enough.
a slave in that respect? Because he's getting paid. I don't know. In a certain respect, it sounds as though, yeah, he's a slave, but on the other respect, he's getting paid. And like he brought up an excellent point. He says, so a guy steals $200, he's going to do 6 years. And a guy steals $10,000, he's going to do the same 6 years? If a guy took $50, he's going to do the same 6 years?
Yes.
Or is it like sort of, it's 6 years as a standard, but if he took $50 out, they make it 2 years. If the guy took $10,000, they'll make it 10 years.
No, it doesn't work that way.
Oh, it's always 6 years.
6 years.
But for the
A
punishment.
person can sell himself for more than 6 years. Based in the court cannot sell for more than 6 years. A person on his own could sell himself for more than 6 years, but the court can't do that. The
Right.
court can only, there's a limit of 6 years. They can't sell him for more than that. A person selling himself can sell himself more than 6 years.
Right, and then you said something about they have to take care of the wife, the kids, and everything.
Right.
Are those kids and wife, are they obligated to also be sort of servants to the master?
No.
Oh,
She can go out and make money, and the master cannot take her money away from her. She gets a job, just give her food, but she works, she keeps her own money.
right, I hear you. All right, thank you very much.
There's a lot of law. I didn't go to all the laws. I don't think it's too complicated. There's a lot of laws I skipped. I can't go. There's chapters and chapters of laws of servants here in the Rambam. And the Gemara talks about it. I didn't go through all the laws because it's just get too tedious. I just want to give a good idea of what's going on.
I have a question about Bella and Ziva, whatever is their name.
Bilhah and Zilpah.
Silva.
Yeah. The
They're
maid, Bilhah was Rachel's maidservant, and Zilpah was
I understand that, but where those two women came from? I mean, they're very important women in the Jewish history.
You know where they came from? You'll be surprised.
Tell me.
They came from Lavan's daughters from concubines, from Pelegish. Rachel and Leah came from regular wife, and they came from Pelegish. They had Lavan. He had a Pelegish.
Pelegish of Lebanon.
A side wife besides
I
Zikri.
see.
So Lavan, that's the kind Lavan was Lavan. So they were also really was from the same father.
Same
actually.
father, but different mother.
Yeah.
I see.
Most people don't know that. We have over here?
Rabbi, if the slavery is so good, like, why don't they do it in Israel now? Instead to put them in jail, they will do it like
First
the
of
way
all, the
they-
law of Evet Ivri is only at the time when the Beis HaMikdash is standing and there's Yovel is 50 years. According to the Torah law, you can't make an Evet Ivri today. Evet Kanani you could, not an Evet Ivri. You can't have Evet Ivri today. Only at the time of the Beis HaMikdash and Yovel, even the time of the second Beis HaMikdash, it wasn't, because most Jews were not there. Yovel was not being held. Yovel every 50 years, every 7 years. Shemitah, the 50 years Yovel, and that does not apply today. So the law of Evet Ivri can't do it today.
Thank you.
We're saying the law in Israel today. It's a secular government today. They don't want to do this. They don't keep the Torah law. They're secular people. They don't. Let them keep Shabbos. Forget about the Evet Ivri. Let them keep Shabbos. That'd be the best thing. So Yom Tov, let them keep all the laws of the Torah. Evet Ivri. That's way up the Torah. That's the basics they don't keep. So. We have a hand over here.
I got the mic.
Oh yeah.
For what would deter a slave from an oar in the ear? It doesn't sound like it's such a deterrent, as opposed to people do it
The only
electively.
ear. Oh no, it's not. That itself is not a deterrent. It's only to remind him. That's ear. What are you doing selling yourself? You want to be a slave even for more than 6 years? You're supposed to be a servant to God, not a servant to people. It's only to bring out the point he should think about before he does it. It's
So
not
it's
a
for the person
that's-
themselves.
Deterrent is what the reminder of deterrent. That you think about that we're supposed to serve God directly, not through other, have other masters over us. But that in itself is not deterrent itself.
And then on a side note, on tefillin, there's 3 legs on the shin, 4 legs on the shin. What is the fourth
No,
leg?
the 3 legs. 4 on the tefillin, one side.
On one side, there's 4.
Yeah. Why 3 and 4? Well, the simple would be 3 is for the 3 patriarchs and the 4 for 4 matriarchs. So we have 3 and 4 the tefillin to bring out this chus, their merit of the tefillin. So we could elaborate on that now, but just in simple understanding, the 3 and 4 is always, we say in the Haggadah, the end of Haggadah, Shloshim Yadeya, who knows 3? I know 3. We the Abbas, who knows 4? I know 4. For the Mois. So we have always 3 and 4 always go together. So many other.
Rabbi, I just have a comment.
Yes.
When a Jewish slave is freed, the master is obligated to send him away with gifts.
Correct. Right.
So
Hanik
that-
Tanik. That's true. Another thing that, the good thing about it, that one is a good point, that when the Jewish slave is freed, the master is obligated to give him a lot of presents, food presents, and all different types of food, fruits and animals, to send him off in a joyous way to start his life over again and get going. He has that money he was sold for in the beginning in his bank account to get him going, and also he has to get him going with this. So I'm glad you mentioned that. That's an important point.
The slave's wife and children, somebody points out, were also provided for by the owner?
Yes. But Jewish, yeah.
Also, somebody points out, just made a point here, that even a non-Jewish slave, there were certain restrictions
He
about.
became Jewish now, by the way. He's Jewish. He was originally not Jewish.
Right,
Once
but that
he
slave
went to
also
a
has
mitzvah
certain
and
rights, right?
circumcised
The
him.
owner couldn't, besides the Rambam that the Rabbi mentioned, the Rabbi Mintz mentioned, there were other restrictions about what you could do. There were things that made him go free if the owner abused the slave.
Of how the
How the non-Jewish slave goes free.
well, if he injures him, if he knocks out his eye or his tooth, so that he goes free, knocks off his hand or whatever it is, certain accidents that happen to the Evet Kanani that we're talking about, that would set him free. Or he could go free, the master writing a document of freedom, originally non-Jewish slave, called a Evet Kanani, can go free by, just like a woman is free from her husband with a get, the slave is free from his master with a get. Shikhr it's called, a document of freedom. And that was usually, it's really not done for no reason at all, but if there's a good reason for it, and the Gemara tells us a story where they needed a minion. They had 9 people, and they wanted to daven with the minion, but they needed a 10th person. The only person who was there was a servant, Evet Kanani, who cannot be part of a minion because has the law that a woman can't be part of a minion. So they freed him in order for him to become a regular Jew to make the 10th person for a minion. So through a document of freedom, an Evet could call it Shtar Shichra. This goes into already halachic different things. There's a lot to discuss at very great length in the Gemara, but just the simple idea that it's possible for the master to free his Eved through a shtar, a document of freedom.
Recently, we read the Haftorah about Elisha, who performed or told this woman to perform a miracle because she owed a lot of money and she was afraid that someone would come and take her children. Is that the same idea?
According to Torah law that we're talking about now, it's not. The only time I mentioned before that a Jewish person could become a servant is only if he stole something. And from there, it doesn't sound like she was stealing anything. She's very poor. And the person could attempt to take the children was not according to Torah law. He has no right to come and take some children away. He was doing it because he was a mafia guy. So he'd come and take the children away. But
so he certainly couldn't take her because she couldn't become an.
I don't know who he was. It was not a Jew, he couldn't do it either. They wouldn't allow him. He's under the Jewish rule. But it was not, you can't take someone's children away. You can't do it. They don't owe the money. Somebody else owes the money, and only for stealing, not for any other type of obligation, a monetary obligation. So that was not according to Torah law. No. But it was happening. She was coming on his own and doing it. She had no choice. So he told her how to get out of the obligation. He told her how to take out the shemen with the oil and make the.
Question: who in his right mind would buy an Eved Ivri? A Jewish slave who he has to provide for.
I don't know what they were asking. I would. I don't know. Why? We had a very interesting. It had. I don't. It shouldn't be. I don't know if people that are here. I don't want to be. Sound not nice, but there are people, Jewish people, and maybe not get into the details, that, especially Jewish women, who are looking for work, and they need money so badly, they're willing to come into people's homes and clean the house, and sweep the floor, and mop the floors, and do everything, and they're begging for people to hire them. And all Jewish balabostas are saying, how can I take another Jewish woman into the house and make it work for me? I can't do that. So they said, I don't care. I need the money. I want to do it, but it's almost like a paradox. Here they're begging for work, but they don't. I can't do that. So I don't know if the person who asked the question, if that's the question, because how can you make a Jewish person work for you, or they're asking because they're not honest and therefore you'd be afraid to take them in. So we addressed that in the beginning of talking about that before. But as far as the other things concerned, it's not so bad. You have to give them a steak, everything you eat, and you have to give them treat them royally. So it's not so bad to take them in and do them the favor of taking care of them. So you're doing them a favor and you're doing yourself a favor. Yes.
Rabbi, would you agree that hidden underneath these laws of slavery, there's an element of discrimination involved between Jew and non-Jew in terms of their treatment and in terms of the condition of slavery?
Well, no, the non-Jew wants this to happen. He's giving himself over. I'm giving myself over to you. It's an eternal a favor for the non-Jew. He wants to become Jewish, but not take upon himself the whole yoke of the Judaism, of all the mitzvahs of the Torah. So here's an opportunity to become partially Jewish and be able to come to the world to come and eternally with his master, being a subordinate himself and subjugate himself to his master. He will become a Jewish to that extent, and he wants it. Nobody's forcing him to do that. He's doing it on his own, generally speaking. So he's not discriminating against it. He's doing it for his own free will and for his own favor, for his own purpose. He wants it. He could become a real Jew if he wants. He could convert and become a real Jew. Nobody's stopping him. Anybody who wants to takes upon himself, will be like a regular Jew like everybody else. Yes.
Rabbi, we were talking about slavery with men. Obviously, women are excluded and children are excluded. So, what's the age where you're considered to be the so-called man that can be sold? Is it, the traditional, like, bar mitzvah age?
Yes.
Is it, because in today's society, obviously, children, I guess, I don't know what the ages are. I don't know if it's somebody younger than 16. I'm not even sure. They get sort of like a different type of treatment than, let's say you have somebody that's 13 that murders somebody, they're treated differently than, somebody that's 18, right? So is it the same, is it really like, so obviously bar mitzvah is 13. So at the age of 14, if you commit, you steal, are you considered to be sort of mature enough to really know what you're doing, where you can...
Well, if the signs of puberty and maturity are existing in the child, and years and signs of maturity in his body or her body, so then it's considered mature people, and they're obligated in all the laws of the Torah. Naturally, if you're talking about selling them, I'm sure they'll make sure to sell them at the right type of home for them, just like we talked about before, they'll be taken care of properly, and naturally their children are going to have the right kind of care that's befitting a Jewish child.
So there's no type of, it's really all about the age. There's no type of evaluation as to how mature somebody really is, or...
I'm sure there is, depending on the circumstances, what's happening. I mean, as far as, let's say a child murders somebody else. I mean, we say, will they get the death penalty? So we mentioned before, any court of law, Jewish court, that gave the death penalty once in 70 years was called a murderous court, because there's so many ways how to find called a loophole, whatever you want to call it, in order to not to give the person a death sentence. And I'm sure by children, it'll be certainly they work overtime in order for them for sure to find it's a mitzvah to find the schus, a mitzvah to try to save a person from the death penalty. So the mitzvah would be certainly by a child, be even more. So officially, it's the same thing, but depending on the circumstances, naturally, everything has to be looked upon it the right way. I mean, main laws have to be kept, but there's different ways of executing the law. And it has to be done accordingly.
Thank you.
So in today's time, if somebody employs a Jewish nanny, they have to follow to be so good to them now also?
No. The laws of Jewish servitude does not apply today. Only the time when the Beis Hamikdash is standing, and the time of Yovel, the 50th Jubilee year, is being kept. That's the only time the laws of Jewish servitude apply. So that does not apply to today, since we don't have Yovel. The 50th year, when the slaves go out free, all the land that was bought goes back to the owners. All the laws of Yovel every 50 years, that has to be something that's going on in order for the laws of Jewish servants to apply. It doesn't apply today. So therefore, naturally, the person has to use the judgment, and they have somebody working for them. We take a cue from here to show that was how we're supposed to treat them nicely, and be very friendly to them, and treat them nicely. But the laws officially don't apply today.